Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for turning the camera around. It's nice to see everyone there. And thank you so much for having me today. I will set a 10-minute timer and be sure not to go over that. So, the work is important and lunch is important too. So we'll get you all there. My name is Hazel Shapiro, and I'm the program analyst for the U.S. Arctic Observing Network. The U.S. Arctic Observing Network, or USAON, is a collaborative initiative which involves both U.S. federal agencies and non-federal and international partners working to improve Arctic observing systems. By coordinating across agencies, USAON is helping to fill observing gaps in the Arctic and support better research, safer operations, and a more secure future. And I wish I could be there in person with you all, but I'm happy instead to be joining from my home in the land of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute people in Colorado in the US. And I'd like to just thank my coworkers, collaborators, and many contributors to this work before I get started. And I think in particular today and this week, I've been thinking a lot about folks in Western Alaska who have suffered from that storm. And that's like all of this work is about making a safer world for folks to live in. So just, yeah, my heart's with them this week. Before we dive in, I want to share a little bit about the Arctic Observing Network, and this relates, I think, really well to what I liked the way David put it, that data is high cost and low value, and so we're looking even one step before the data in terms of what are the equipments and people and different ways that we collect data, and all of that is referred to as Arctic observing or Earth observations. And you can see in red here many different kinds of observing systems that are common in the Arctic, including satellites, weather stations, human observers, and more. And then what is the Arctic Observing Network? It's not so much a network, but a group of networks that work together to create Arctic data, collect Arctic data, and share it. And I think this mirrors what I think it was Chantal or Shannon, I think it was Chantal, shared the spaghetti diagram. And you can see how complicated the Arctic data space is. The Arctic observing space is just as complicated. And so that's the spot that USAON come into a highly distributed network in order to try to provide some strategic support and planning support to folks in that space. So a couple of issues we're trying to address. A highly dispersed network with both some really important strengths and some recognized shortcomings. We have a lot of folks in this space with a incredibly relevant and domain-specific understanding of strengths and gaps. So sea ice researchers will know really well the observing systems that relate to sea ice, but it's challenging to understand those compared to gaps in terms of understanding vegetation or Arctic pollinator distribution, or squirrels, as we heard about earlier. And so what we're looking for is a way to describe gaps and strengths across different disciplines, across different organizational boundaries, without losing a sense of the unique context of the Arctic and the unique context of each of those disciplines. So we want something that's sort of flexible, context-specific, but applicable in different areas. And so to answer these questions, USAON developed a benefit assessment method and benefit tool, which is a way of assessing, understanding, and visualizing strengths and gaps in the Arctic observing systems, as well as connections to societal benefit. And so we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But I just wanted to say that I'm very happy to be joining the Polar Data Forum today because this work has such strong connections back to data management issues. And I think that there's a couple examples of those kind of relevant crossovers, some of which relate to data visualization and storytelling, and some of which relate to pieces that will be touched on later in the forum. But I think our ability to create a useful tool and apply it successfully depends on learning from you all in the data management community. And then I also think that we're solving a complementary set of issues, and there's opportunities for partnership between USAON and the data management community, some of which our partners are in the room there today or online. Some of those are very well established, and there's always opportunities for more. So I put my name and email address in my Zoom name. I don't know if y'all can see that, and it's at the end of my presentation as well, but I would welcome folks to reach out. All right, so what is benefit assessment and how does it work? It's basically a diagram. It's a bit more complicated than this, but I'll go quickly through it since I know we're short on time. If you can see my cursor over here, we have observing systems on the left, societal benefit areas on the right. And as David just mentioned, the observing systems, the data products themselves, don't provide direct connection to societal benefit, but rather that is through this series of value-added steps. And so we try to understand that in context and collect detailed information about how well things are performing and how important they are in that context. And so you could see this in the data management sense as a sense of provenance and fitness for use, sort of a way of collecting that from subject matter experts in their field. So we've developed a custom software tool to support this. This is in partnership with the National Snow and Ice Data Center, who has just done an exceptionally good job. There's a QR code here if you want to scan and poke around. It just takes a Google login to get in. We have about 50 assessments in progress. We're still working on developing our user support. So it's a little bit slow going right now because we have to sort of walk folks through it step by step. But we're learning along the way and doing a sort of iterative development where we come up with an idea, we test it with folks, we get their feedback, and we try to apply that both to our assessment process and also to the software tool. You'll see this diagram come up again. Again, you have observing systems on the far left, societal benefit areas on the far right. This one is related to wildfire exposure in Alaska and was developed by Jen Schmidt at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And so she helps develop this wildfire exposure GIS and is able to provide information around what key data sets and observing systems support that, as well as how it relates to societal benefit area. And yeah, happy to dive in more if there's questions. Gonna jump through this. I'll just say that we developed some use cases that give us a sense of what user groups might be interested in this process and have been, again, grounding that in live work with folks. So in terms of communication, we've come across a lot of the same issues that others folks have talked about today. I really liked, Yannick, what you had said, trying to focus on meaning rather than having folks have to focus on decoding the data. So something like this is quite complicated for folks to walk through. And so we've been trying to develop more narrative discussions of this information and synthesize and distill for different kinds of decision makers or folks who are interested in this. We're actively gathering feedback on these communication tools. We know we could make them more succinct, use more news stories and quotes to bring the data alive. And then I think this building trust piece is an important part. So conveying to folks the process by which we came about with these key findings without losing them in that and still making it understandable. So that's something that I'm interested in always doing a better job of. In order to approach the communication piece, we developed this sort of like newsletter briefing kind of material. We call it the Arctic Observation Storylines. You can see one here about Riverwatch, which is an ice jam flood prediction service in Alaska, and one about airport weather stations, again, in the Alaskan Arctic. And tries to highlight underlying issues with the observing systems, as well as with the data and the sort of whole value chain there. All right. Let's see. All right, so I mentioned already that I think that can be a really good tool also for supporting open science, as we are in some ways collecting context-specific information related to provenance and fitness for use. And Peter, I was taking notes as you were talking about the use level metadata, discovery level metadata, and how do we structure this in order to make it useful to you all and to the broader community as well. And here I was going to go into more detail, but I think I will skip that in the interest of time. Again, we would be really interested in developing more partnerships around this. So we have some members of the Polar Observing Assets Working Group here in the room and online. We've been working closely with them on the metadata structure and other aspects. We developed a methods expert committee. Again, some folks I think are there in the room who helped give input as we developed this tool and process. And there's a few other groups there that have been partners along the way. But there's more to be done. And so we would be interested in doing this. We're also exploring some uses of AI in synthesizing and understanding the information in the tool and seeing how well it can do that. So with that, thank you so much. I look forward to the rest of the forum and really invite you all to reach out if you're interested in learning more, and happy to take any questions.